Hello guys, good evening. Welcome to my channel, and I'm here right now on your screen to discuss about the challenges in assessment in K-12 math and science curriculum. So before you go on my video on here, please don't forget to click the like button, subscribe button, and share this video also to your colleagues or your friends. And anyway, my name is John Vincent Feliz Pindoliente, and I will be presenting about this uh, assessment of the K-12 math and science curriculum. Okay, so here we go. So let's start with the classroom assessment. So classroom assessment is an integral part of curriculum. So the implementation, it allows teachers to track and measure learners' progress and to adjust instruction accordingly. So classroom assessment informs the learners as well as their parents and guardians of their progress. So as you can see, the teacher in here is explaining those pictures written on the board to the students, and the teacher is understanding what would be the assessment he could try to assess with the students itself. Now, on here on this part, we can see that the teaching after the teaching there will be an assessment, and that assessment will be followed by the learning, and the learning followed also by the assessment. It's a cycle of the teaching and learning with the assessment itself. Okay, so here we go. For the non-dep ed schools, as what written, the classroom the non-dep ed schools, I mean, this urge to implement this policy guidelines as well. So the non-dep ed schools are permitted also to modify these policy guidelines according to their school's philosophy, mission, and vision, with approval of the appropriate dep ed regional office. I mean. Okay, so let's go with the other one. So the policy guidelines on classroom assessment for the K-12 Basic Education Program, or the BEP. So we have here the theoretical basis. So at the heart of this assessment framework is the recognition and deliberate consideration of the learner's zone of proximal development. So this is the zone of proximal development the learners can do with guidance itself. Now, from this point of view, assessment facilitates the development of learners' higher order thinking and in the 21st century skills. So the view of assessment, therefore, acknowledge the unity of instruction and assessment. Now, we have on here the formative assessment. In a formative assessment, this may be seen as assessment for learning, so teachers can make adjustments in their instruction. Okay, it is also an assessment as learning wherein students reflect on their own progress. So this may be given at any time during the teaching and learning process. It is also a way to track the effectiveness of instruction. This also involves teachers using evidence about what learners know and can do to inform and improve their teaching, and teachers observe and guide learners in their tasks through interaction and dialogue. Thus, this gaining deeper insights into the learner's progress, strengths, weaknesses, and needs. So this must also provide students with immediate feedback on how well, they are learning throughout the teaching learning process. Now, on here, the next part is the summative assessment. On the summative assessment, this may be seen as an assessment of learning, which occurs at the end of the particular unit. So this form of assessment usually occurs toward the end of a period of learning in order to describe standard reached by the learner. So this measures whether learners have met the content and performance standards. So teachers must use methods to measure student learning that have been deliberately designed to assess how well students have learned and are able to apply their learning in different contexts. Okay, so we have to discuss in here the what is assessed in the classroom. So we have the content standards, the performance standards, learning competencies, and the concept development. So assessment in the classroom is aimed at helping students perform well in relation to the learning standards. So learning standards comprise content standards, performance standards, and learning competencies that are outlined in the curriculum. So in the content standard, we have to identify and set this identify me and set the essential knowledge and understanding what should be learned. So this answers the question, what should the learners know, or what should be the content for that? Okay, so next part is the performance standard. So this describes the abilities and skills that learners are expected to demonstrate in relation to the content standard and integration of the 21st century skills. And the next part is the learning competencies. This refers to the knowledge, understanding, skills, and attitudes need to demonstrate in every lesson and or learning activity. Next part is the concept development. In the concept development, this provides a scheme for classifying educational goals, objectives, and standards. It also defines a broad range of cognitive processes from basic to complex, as follows by remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So those are the pyramid created also in learning. Okay, so next part on here is the grading system. Okay, as you can see that the computation of the summative assessment for the grades 1 to 12 on here. In the step 1, we have the written work, the performance task, and the quarterly assessment. This will be followed that learners' total score will be over to the highest possible score times the 100%. That is the formula of it. Okay, so this is the step 3, and then the step 4 and the step 5. On the step 5, the initial grade should be transmuted. Okay, if it is 8 is 84.6, so that will be transmuted to 90. Okay. So the K-12 Basic Education program, this uses the standards and competency-based grading system. All grades will be based on the weighted raw scores of the learners' summative assessments. So the minimum grade needed to pass a specific learning area is 60, which is transmuted to 75 in the report card. The lowest mark that can appear in the report card is 60 for quarterly grades and final grades. For these guidelines, the department will use a floor grade considered as the lowest possible grade that will appear in the learner's report card. So the question I am made on here is, how are grades computed at the end of the school year? So the average of the quarterly grades, or the QG, produces the final grade. So the general average is computed by dividing the sum of all final grades by the total number of learning areas. Each learning areas has equal weight. The final grade in each learning area and the general weight average are reported as whole numbers. Okay, so the next part is, what are the challenges and difficulties I have had encountered while using the assessments? And of course, we have to determine that because one, despite the promises, I mean, an obvious advantages to distance learning, there are problems that need to be resolved. So these problems include the quality of instruction. This is the one part for me. So the hidden cost, misuse of technology, and the attitudes of instructions. And of course, the instructors. So the students and administrators also. So each one of these has an effect on the overall quality of distance learning as a product in many ways. So each of these issues relates to the others. On here, we will be examining each of these issues separately. Now, on here, as you can see, that the teacher is having a difficulty on how to explain the the topic of the content or the content of the lesson on here. So she is using the globe and explaining what should be. Okay. The other part on here, the picture, as you can see, the teacher is assisting the children or the student on what to do in order for the learning to be emphasized. Okay. So in here part, okay. So I would consider that a misuse in technology. So despite the promises and obvious advantages to distance learning, there are problems that need to be resolved. So these problems include the quality of instruction, the hidden cost, misuse of technology, and attitudes of instructors, students, and administrators also. So besides of the cost of technology, there is a possibility of not utilizing all its potential. Some of these problems arise from a lack of training and some of the instructors' attitudes about using the technology, and still others by hardware problems. So it seems to be a self-evident that instructors need to be trained to use distance learning technology. But too often that they are not, once again, it appears that administration may feel that the technology itself will improve the course. So advancement in technology does not lead to effective distance education. But of course, when you do so, when it comes to the assessment of the student, you have to understand first the behavior of the student and what would be the need for learning. And of course, you have to put also the psychology of the child's psychology. You have to understand what would be um, your basis also for teaching, and what would be how would you implement that learning strategy to the student itself. So of course, you have to understand also the behavior of the student itself, because there will be a focus of the two. Okay, so on the next part on here, so what are the advantage of assessment on my teaching strategies? So after parents, teachers are the most valuable figure in every child's life, as he or she shapes the mind of a kid and enlighten them with great knowledge. Teachers put in all efforts to teach the kids and sometimes go out of their way to make them understand the equation. So the bond between students and teachers is full of respect. They not just teach but motivate, inspire, and encourage the children to deal with challenges thrown by life. Okay, on here. So as you can see, um, we have to motivate all the students also. Okay, so this will be my suggestion only on how to should the students be assessed on here. Okay, so thank you very much for listening on this video, and I hope that you have learned a lot from this video. And please don't forget to click the like button, subscribe button, and share this video to your colleagues and to your friends. Thank you very much, and that's all for this evening. Bye.